Unless you've been hiding under a rock, you know that the big story in the world of GLP-1s is an announcement of a deal between the Trump administration and two GLP-1 manufacturing titans, Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. What does this all mean? I'm RMZ. Let's get into it. I'll try my best to keep politics out of it, but politics permeates everything these days, and this is no different. So if I get a little political, which I probably will, forgive me in advance, I'm not going to suppress my thoughts and feelings on this. Now, before I get into it, I also have to point out some irony. In the midst of doing this big announcement to make these medications that treat obesity and diabetes more affordable, the Trump administration was simultaneously communicating to U.S. embassies abroad to deny visas for anyone who is obese and diabetic because it could be a public charge. So there is that. Okay, once you get past the headlines for the price reduction, a lot of details are a little murky still, probably purposely so. Hopefully more details will be forthcoming, but here's what we know at a high level. Lilly and Novo will offer the initiation dose of their GLP-1 pills, which are yet to be approved by the FDA, for $150. More on that FDA approval later. Lilly will lower the starting dose of Zepbound through its direct-to-consumer platform to $299, while the higher doses will be reduced by $50 down to $449 per month. Novo will drop their direct-to-consumer pricing for Ozempic and Wegovy from $499 per month to $349 per month. They will also have introductory pricing on the two lowest doses for the first 2 months at $199 per month. That pricing will end on March 31st. The manufacturers will sell these medications to Medicare for $245 per month, and there will be a $50 copay for patients. This is expected to start sometime around mid-2026. More on that later. Medicaid will have a program that will go into effect probably in 2027, but it will be dependent on individual states to opt into this program. Now, what I'm not clear on is if they will do away with the vials or offer both the multi-dose pens and the vials for their direct-to-consumer program. Now, let's break these down individually. First, the GLP-1 pills. The initiation doses are set to be priced at $150 per month. There is no word on what the titration doses will be priced at. This is like a street pharmaceutical tactic. Let me give this to you for free or at a reduced price to get you hooked, and then jack the price up down the road once you're hooked. Also, neither of these GLP-1 pills have been approved, but maybe that is the point. You make these deals to give the administration a win, and we will expedite the approval process of these medications that you have in the pipeline. We will also make sure that the FTC, the SEC, and the DOJ approve the purchases of smaller pharmaceutical companies that are before us. Just this year, Eli Lilly has announced the acquisitions of Adverum Biotechnologies, SiteOne Therapeutics, and Verb Therapeutics. Novo Nordisk has announced the acquisition of Akero Therapeutics. So whether it's Big Pharma, Paramount and Skydance, Sinclair, Disney, law firms, or institutions of higher learning, this kind of willing and dealing, this quid pro quo, gives an air of corruption instead of the kind of checks and balances that the government is supposed to be performing. And it really becomes a slippery slope. Instead of being a nation of laws that we purport to be, we risk becoming a unitary government subject to the whims of a single individual. Now, this one may be good for the consumer at this time in some way, but I am sure that the accountants at Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk ran the numbers and saw that there will be significant profits for them if they play ball. Plus, they wouldn't have to raid their significant war chest to sue the federal governments over holding up approvals of medications or acquisitions. And let's be frank, these companies have a fiduciary duty to maximize profits for their shareholders. So the fact that they're doing that tells me that they are going to be maximizing their profits by going this route. Next, let's talk about the direct-to-consumer pricing. One thing that wasn't clear to me is if a consumer could go directly to Lilly Direct or NovoCare to get these lower prices, or if they needed to go through or be referred by TrumpRX. I have a problem with this vanity name and website branding. It should be something more neutral like FedRx, but instead of that, it's been politicized with Trump's name and imagery. There may be many that will be averse to going to this site. Then there are questions as to what data will this site be collecting, who will have access to that data, and what will they do with it. We talk about vanity. There's also reports from ESPN that Trump is trying to make the Washington Commanders name their new stadium in DC after him. Anyway, Eli Lilly will now price the 2.5 milligram dose of Zepbound at $299, and the titration doses will be $449. Novo Nordisk will have a temporary introductory price on the first 2 doses at $199 per month. Again, the whole setup of giving you this low price to start and then jacking the prices up once I have you hooked and you need to continue the medication. Now let's talk about Medicare. The medication will be sold to Medicare at $245 per month, and the Medicare copay will be $50. Now they were able to negotiate this price because of the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 signed into law by President Biden, which finally opened the door for Medicare to negotiate drug prices. And you may be saying, I thought it was illegal for the federal government to pay for weight loss drugs. And that is still correct. That is a law that is still on the books. So how are they going to do this? In part, there is a provision in the law that allows for pilot programs to be run. This will be run under one of those pilot programs, which will help demonstrate different coverages and models to improve care. Now, I'm not sure how long the pilot program can be run, but I am sure it is not indefinite. There is one pilot program that will start in January of 2026 and is set to run for 6 years. It's called WISER, or Wasteful and Inappropriate Service Reduction, which will use AI on prior authorizations in 6 states. And we all know how AI has been doing with these prior authorizations and denying coverages for many people in the community. So hopefully that particular program does a whole lot better. And lastly, it should be noted that that Biden implemented this very same Medicare program towards the end of his term, and that was reversed by Trump a few months into this year, and he is now bringing that program back. But ultimately, Congress will need to repeal the 2003 law that prohibits the federal government from paying for weight loss medications. Now, there's also a restriction on who will be eligible for these lower prices on Medicare. Medicare patients must fall in one of the following categories. They need to be a patient with a BMI of 27 who also has been diagnosed as pre-diabetic, or who have had a stroke, myocardial infarction, or peripheral artery disease. Or they must be a patient with a BMI of 30 who also have stage 3 kidney disease or other qualifying comorbidities. And lastly, be a patient who has a BMI over 35, which represents severe obesity. It is estimated that just 10% of Medicare patients will be eligible for this program. Also, I will point out, this does nothing to reduce the price of medication for commercial plans in the short term. Whether it will have an effect on pricing long term remains to be seen. So there will still be many out there on commercial plans that will lose coverage due to the cost of these medications. Now, lastly, Medicaid coverage. Something will be rolled out in 2027, maybe. However, it will be up to individual states to participate or opt in. And how many will be willing to do that? Legislation to cut $1 trillion from Medicaid over the next 10 years was passed just a few months ago. It is estimated that 15 million people will lose coverage. So it may be cost prohibitive for states to extend this program to Medicaid patients. If states decide to participate, how many will be left uncovered because they no longer qualify for Medicaid coverage? And that doesn't even account for the premium increases that we're seeing on the Affordable Care Act marketplaces. We're seeing coverage there double and triple for monthly premiums. So how many people will be eligible for coverage to gain access to these medications? So that's my thoughts on the matter. Hopefully I summed that up nicely. We'll take a wait and see approach to see how this really rolls out and what effect it has on pricing and access to these medications. I'm hoping for the best, but I'm also not holding my breath.